26 is going to be an interesting year because, in a way, it's olive green underneath, which is hope for the future, and it's magenta on top, which is divine love. So I think next year is going to feel possibly quite difficult, but if we hold on to what the deep inner message of those colors are, we're going to see that it is about hoping that there is real new growth coming in that olive green, and that the magenta is overlighting it, saying divine love has got what this is needing to be. So it'll be a year of, I suspect, quite a lot of shifting and changing and things happening that is going to look not great, but don't go into fear. Absolutely go into the meaning of those colors and know that it's hopeful, and it is divinely ordered and steered and on purpose and happening exactly as we set it up for our highest good and our soul's purpose.
Okay, so hello. My name is Hayden Crawford, and this is the Numerology Show. I'm got a truly blessed actually today to have a very important person in my life and very special guest on the show called Melissie Jolly, who's the founder of the Colour Mirrors system that I work with, an amazing system. Now, she first channeled the system, this profound system, back in 2001. And she created a very powerful fusion of both color and numerology that offers really deep insights into our soul's journey. So she's also an accomplished author, having written books like What the Seeker Found, which is actually my favorite spiritual book that I've ever read. It's amazing. And also co-authored The Wisdom of Colour Mirrors as well with Karani Connolly, which is probably my second favorite book. And she's also, her works help thousands of people all around the world understand the vibrational power of color and its connection to spiritual growth. So if you've ever wondered how colors and numbers align to heal hidden truths about who you truly are at a soul level, why you're here, and how to heal at a very deep level, then this episode is definitely going to be the one for you to tune into. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the magic of colour mirrors and its sacred connection to numerology. So welcome, Melissie, first of all. Thank you so much for being back on the show. I remember I interviewed you, what must have been 7 or 8 years ago when I first got introduced to the system. It was a long time ago, but it's so lovely to see you here again. And I can't wait to dive deeper into your wisdom. So if you can take us back to 2001 to begin with. So what was the moment like when you first received the Colour Mirror system?
Oh, Hayden, it was a process. It happened quite slowly and then quite quickly, a little bit like how one goes bankrupt. They say that happens quite slowly and then quite quickly. There was nothing. And then I had a friend who was able to, he was a chemist, and he kind of showed me how to color the oil because that was the difficult one. And when we finally managed to do that and we got it all going, then it was literally 24 hours and the first 33 bottles were made. And I literally had a list of people who had worked with a previous color system I worked with, who were kind of waiting for me to do something so that they could come and do workshops, because that was now what they were vaguely addicted to. And so in the first 24 hours, I had 33 bottles, I had written the manual, and we had a workshop the next day. So it was as quick as that when it finally happened. And it was incredible. It really, there were such magical things that happened. I had a secretary at the time who had just done the Hands of Light workshop. You know, that where we've got, look, this was in 2000. Nobody knew anything yet. And South Africa is still 20 years behind everybody else. So when we kind of found out about energy and all the rest of the stuff, it was all very new and exciting. And she had just done this workshop where she could put her hands on things and feel the energy. So I said to her, come in and feel these bottles. Well, she walked out the door, out the house, into the street to go and feel where the end of the energy was. It had literally gone kind of atomic. It had just exploded out, and the light was incredible. My whole house, I was surprised people didn't kind of come and take photographs, because to me it felt as if the whole house was alight with this energy. It was really an incredible kind of event, if I think about it now. You know, and then you carry on with life and you kind of go, oh, well, so that happened, but did it really? Am I remember it correctly? But it absolutely did.
The way you're describing it, it just reminds me of like fireworks going off, almost like some sort of out-of-body mystical experience that was a bit otherworldly. Is that how it felt?
It was absolutely that. And the other thing that happened was that there was a spirit guide, a person who had worked with color, I won't name her, but who worked with color, who came to me as physical as I am. And she was sitting on my bed in the morning when I woke up, and I was like, oh my God, what's this old woman doing here? Poor love, she was younger than I am now, but when she died. So old woman is not fair considering where I'm at. But she was there, and she said to me, do you want to know how to energize these bottles? And I was like, yeah, that would be good. So she said, this is what you do. And I had a tree of life on a piece of fabric on the floor, because we had been doing a workshop with that. And she said, this is what you do. You put these bottles in these circles on the tree, and then you invoke these angels. And she walked me through that like the tree of life kind of has a lightning strike along the pathways. And she walked me through that kind of lightning strike of the energies and invoked all these angels to energize them. And it was after that Alison came and felt the energy and kind of got blown out of the house. But it was an astonishing situation. It really was very magical.
Wow. So this lady, did you recognize her? Was the system channeled from a specific source, do you think?
I think source is source. And I think it's all the same. And I think we are all tapping into the same source when we work with color. And it is just, it's color and light. It's what the universe is made of. So it is kind of I suspect, I wonder who will argue the point, but I think it's the high. I don't know if there are higher and lower sources. I think there's just clean, clear energy, light, color source, and we're all tapped into it. And we can choose where we want to go with that.
So what was the first bottle then that you ever created, and what was its message?
It's weird, because it was at a time of my life, Hayden, that I was unhappier and going through the biggest initiation, that I didn't just die at that point is a wonder. I left my children in England because I had run completely out of money and I couldn't afford schooling, and I was just kind of really, really on the bones. And I flew back from England having left my son there, and the sky turned into very deep navy blue with a kind of a coral streak of sunlight still. And I sat and looked at that, and I thought, what I want to do is I want to make a bottle that color. And the first one I made the moment I had the colors was bottle 17, which is the star, which is the coral over deep blue. So that was really the first one. And that one says, its message is your wish will be fulfilled. This is a time to wish big, because your wishes are coming true. And in a way, it was exactly that is what it did for me. And then the first one was obviously number one, the yellow. And that was also an interesting thing, because for me, somehow yellow has always been, I did an art course. I did a degree in art to find out that I wasn't really an artist. So it took me 3 years to work that out. So seriously, not that bright. And for me, I always started a painting with yellow. My undercolors were always yellow. And for some reason, that was what it absolutely needed to be. And so the first bottle was the number one, the yellow, because that was the one that really started the system. For me, that is kind of, I can't really explain it logically, but that's where it all starts, is in the yellow. Maybe it's the sunlight that starts the process of any kind of growth.
I love the way you've explained that, because I love bottle number one as well. It's always such a joyful color, and I know that you mentioned in your teachings that yellow is the start of the ascension process, because you've got to feel the joy to be able to start the ascension. Of course, it relates to the self. The one is the self, and of course, the solar plexus chakra, which is about power and personal power. So it is the perfect place to start, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's beautiful. So the 17 energy, so that if we go back to the wish, the 17 reduces to an 8. But does the number 17 carry a specific vibration as well as, and how does that align with, maybe why that was the first bottle that came through to you as well?
Hayden, I am having to admit to being stupid, because do you know what? I've just realized for the first time ever is that 17, of course, also comes together as 8. And I'm, in fact, an 8. So it kind of makes sense that I would have started with 17, which is an 8, just to put me in the system, just for me to be part of the system in a weird way.
Wow, that's such a great realization, isn't it? And
I
it's
know, I
just dawned
know.
on you.
Yes, because
Wow.
stupid.
Well, I'd hardly describe you as that. Okay, so the color mirrors is unique in how it aligns colors with numbers, isn't it? So how do these two modalities complement each other?
You're actually the person to answer that question better than I would, because for me, the numerology was never the key. The color was the key. And then because we are given numbers, I mean, we have a birth date, a thing that you cannot change. You can change your name and you can change those numbers and you can make your vibration a different thing. But your birthday is such a key thing. It relates to your astrology and it relates to all the rest of it. And so the numbers are there and the numbers are a given. You can't change those. That is your birth date forever and ever. And so when we look at that through the filter of color, it gives you just that much extra information. So for instance, how we do with color mirrors, I know you do slightly differently, but also I'm sure you do the same stuff, is we look at your birthday and what bottle that relates to, and then we add all the numbers up, and then we have a second number that then gets added together to form a single number. So for instance, my birthday is on the 11th of January, so my bottles are an 11, and then it comes together as 26, which then we look at bottle 26, and then we look at bottle 8, because that comes together as an 8. And so it is a really interesting thing to look at that, to see what your true life path is about and what your experiences will be and what your journey is going to be. And then it also is incredibly interesting to look at the rest of your family. It's so interesting. In my birth family, my mother and father and sister are all 27 nines. So I was this weird little purple sitting in amongst all the reds. So I felt like the odd one out. I always was the odd one out. So it really made sense to look at how we came together, except they kind of had to be the fieriness that would get my quite 8 is Saturn, and it's violet, and it's kind of quite solid. Saturn is Father Time, and the violet is kind of that color that says, here's a big heavy thing. This is not going to be an easy, specifically journey. But with a red kind of surrounding it, they were there to literally fire me up so that I could get going, so that I could do what excuse me, what I had to do. So it made perfect sense, really.
Yeah,
Would you
absolutely.
would you look at it like that? How would you see that?
100% like that. And it's interesting as well because, just through what you were saying to me then, you being the 11 and the 9, sorry, the 8, which is Saturn and duality. So the violet, and then you've got the deep magenta over clear. Well, one of the other ladies that I interviewed on the show recently called Rachel Lang, she was also the same combination of ruling 8 with
Okay.
a day number 11. And I often
Mm.
find that that specific combination of colors and numbers go into this sort of work. It's like it's just the vibration where the violet connects you to spirit, gives you the clairvoyance, and then the duality aspect is also the clairvoyant, but also the person that has to go through issues of separation and learn through the dark and the light, the good and the bad, the black and the white. But that's what makes them great life coaches, spiritual teachers, and social workers. So it's interesting as well because I know that your daughter Jilly is a 9 as well. So that's more fiery
Yes.
energy. I'm a
Yes.
27/9 myself. So I've got all that fiery energy. And you work well within that dynamic with you and Jilly as
Yes.
well. But it brings in that
Yeah.
28, that 26 rather, um,
Yeah.
which is that codependent dynamic as well, isn't it? It brings in the sort of codependency between two partners. And Mark, my husband, is an 8, and he has the 26 energy as well. So
Oh,
I,
wow.
I totally relate to what you're saying. The red and the violet working together like that is a brilliant union.
Yes. Well, that's so interesting because Julie and I, like you and Mark, are kind of soulmates. She'd hate to know that, but it's the truth. That was kind of my little person that I created so that we could eventually work together. Who knew that was God's plan when we started out? But it works perfectly, as do you and Mark, which is just lovely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful system for helping you to integrate that type
Yeah.
of understanding about your relationship
Yeah.
dynamic as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, can you walk us through like how someone's life path number or ruling number or other numerology aspects can be reflected in color? Like, are there specific color frequencies that resonate with each of the numbers 1 to 9?
Um, Look, number one is going to be number one, and it actually makes perfect sense that that is bright yellow because that is the shiny one. It's kind of the one that says, "I am going to be the leader. I am going to be the star in my show." Possibly in other people's shows as well, if you look at some of the big number ones around at the moment. Um, and number two is going to be the one that says, I will be about partnerships. There will be two people. I will need a partner. I will be a good HR person. I will be the people person that will bring things together, that will bring people together, that will keep the peace, because blue is also a very much the color of peace. Number three is communication, which is an interesting one in the color mirror system because that's coral. And you wouldn't really relate coral to the throat and communication, but it actually is, if you look at the complementary color to the coral, it's turquoise, which is communication of the heart. So you can kind of see that when a person can move into that coral vibration, which is self-acceptance and self-love, then they will be able to communicate from the heart. And those people will be powerful teachers. And in a way, I almost want to say powerful magicians, because they will speak things into being. Because how you attract a reality that looks kind of magical from the outside is by self-love, by self-acceptance, because you attract everything you believe you deserve. So that coral kind of really works in terms of living a life that should be that could flow very easily. So you see that kind of coral turquoise thing happening there. Number
Mm.
four is always a dodgy one for me, and you might know more about this, because four is kind of the four corners of the pyramid, and it should be about stability and solidness. And yet, in this system, four relates to Uranus, which is the disruptor, which disrupts everything and throws it all over so that it can be changed and come back together in a different way. And 4, in terms of, I think it's feng shui or one of the Chinese ways, they wouldn't even, like we're worried about a 13. They don't number their house number 4, or they think 4 is such a difficult number that you kind of ignore it. It's like planes that don't have seat 13 in it and buildings that don't have a 13th floor, that kind of thing. There's a real kind of a worry about 4. So I'm confused about 4 because, as I say, it should be the stability of the 4 corners of the pyramid, and yet it is all about disruption and throwing things over, and so that it can be built in a new way. So I'm not sure about that one. What's your sense of that?
Well, it's interesting because I think that the 4 is a breaking down of old structures, but also, it relates to Uranus. So like bottle 4 is the yellow over deep turquoise, but also the 4 connects to the planet, the Earth. So, that is the stability support. So in a way, it kind of carries the vibration of both the excessive and deficient qualities, or the positive and negative aspects of the 4. So I find it really interesting that bottle 4 in the system is more of a disruptor of old order, and creates almost like is the shock that creates the new foundation. So I think you always have to remember that there are positive and negative connotations of each of the numbers.
Oh, absolutely. But I have a feeling that Donald Trump is a 4.
Is he?
I think so, which kind of then makes sense, doesn't it? It really is the disruptor.
Yeah, he would be an iconic 4, wouldn't he? Because he just epitomizes the whole the system, discipline. It's about the authoritarian and the structure and breaking down, and money. He is, yeah. If you ever want to understand the vibration of the 4, yeah, just think Trump Towers, isn't it?
Absolutely. There you go. And you can see it as the yellow kind of the ego, watch me do this. And then, but underneath that yellow ego sits that deep turquoise, which is really, for me, the depth of the ocean. It is that place where you can go very deep with things, which is possibly why there is such a deep understanding that it would make sense that you would disrupt it, go deep and then see what actually is hidden in the depths. And I mean, his thing about what draining the swamp, that bottle totally is about draining the swamp, I think. So it's interesting. It's an interesting one. Number 5 is freedom and structure, and that constant dance between the two. In color mirrors, it relates to Gemini, which is kind of or not Gemini, Mercury, which is kind of the information bringer. There's always a seeker in number 5. There's somebody who's looking for ways to be structured, but also to find the freedom within the structure. There's kind of quite a dance that happens there. And intriguingly, in my family, as you said, Jilly's a 9. My boys are both 5s, and her son is a 5. So all the boys in the family are 5s. So we kind of have that red and green thing going on, which then relates to my 26, which is also, in a way, a kind of a red and green bottle. So you can see how the family patterns really go match along the way. And I think that is one of the really fun things to do, because you can do the numbers and you can go, yes, oh, look at this. But until you actually visually have them in bottles and in colors, there's a really lovely bit of information that then comes through that says, here, you can see how that works together. You can see how those two fit together. Or this is why this person in my family has always been so difficult for me to deal with, because those are such clashing colors that just can't fit together. And is there a way that we can make them fit? Could we, if we combined those colors, what would we get? And how would it be if we used that to try and kind of work out the family structure so that we can have more peace in the family? And I think this would be especially really handy for mothers or for parents with a difficult child, because you don't, you can't just go, if it's a cousin that's difficult, you can go, well, I won't speak to them anymore. But you can't do that with your close family. You want to find a way through to make it work so that everybody can shine in a way.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting that you should bring that up because, the system does provide insight into these karmic, sort of ancestral family and past life influences, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It so does. Because you can see, you can also kind of work out the past lives if you look at the colors.
Like how specifically? Could you elaborate on like how certain colors and
I'm going
numbers?
to I'm going to give you a little bit of, I mean, if you for instance have if somebody has an I knew you were going to ask me a question that I couldn't really answer. If you have somebody choosing colors and they give you a yellow and a violet bottle, you're going to say, this was an Egyptian lifetime. This was a very powerful Egyptian lifetime. Or if somebody gives you, or for instance, and I can do this with my boys, the one is 32.5 and the one is 23.5. And I can so clearly see that past life, because 23 is the initiation, and it is kind of Egyptian, or maybe not even Egyptian, it's mystery schools. And that's my son David, and he writes books and he has such deep insight that I always go, how can you know stuff like this? But if you look at that 23, you can see this is a soul that's come a long way through many, many mystery schools, through many teachings. Stephen is a 32.5, and Stephen carries that energy of persecution. And absolutely, I can see with him. And when he was very little, he said to me, I said something about, why did you choose me as a mother? And he went, I didn't choose you. You were just the one that was around at the time. I had to be with Dad because he and he was little, he was like 2 and a bit. Dad and I used to ride on horses, and we wore clothes like fish skin with big red crosses on the front. So they were absolutely Cathars, and were they were kind of together in that lifetime. And so you can so clearly see how their previous lives, Stephen was a Cathar and David came from the mystery school. So you can see how they came together as brothers, because they kind of are two sides of the same coin, So it's very interesting to look at the paths that they've come through. Jilly is a 36 9. She's not a 27. And for her, I just see the future. She didn't come from the past. I see very little in terms of past life influences. Her stuff is so futuristic and so from the stars.
I love
so you
that.
Can see
Yeah,
where we
100%.
come from.
And then a lot of the sevens seem to have this deep connection with either the ocean or Atlantis, and timelines of working with crystals or energy healing, sound therapy, and all the, the exploration of the subconscious, don't they?
Absolutely. You can absolutely see that. And do you know how many sevens we have in the color mirrors family? So many sevens.
I'd say 700.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Or 777 to be precise.
777, yes.
So talking about master numbers, how do they show up in the color mirrors system?
Well, 11 kind of gives you a clue that it's about it's about non-judgment, and the mastery in the 2 ones is kind of having to see yourself as the one, but it's me and my higher self rather than me and another person. It's the person who can connect with their higher self. It's the person who can find their spiritual path. 22 very much is again, it's a magenta, and this was such an interesting thing again, Hayden, with the colors, is that again, I'm always the last to find out what's going on. Somebody way down the line in a workshop said to me, why are all the master numbers magenta? And I went, you know what, that was not a thing I thought up. That was a thing that absolutely happened. So we've got 11, which is dark magenta over clear. Then we've got 22, which is dark magenta over rose pink. Then we've got 33, which is pale pink over rose pink. And then when I counted further, C8 is the next, would be 44, which is again pink over dark magenta. And it's like that I most certainly did not go looking for. And then when we went down the line, G4, which is pink over copper, is 55. So again, and 66 is the Satori bottle, which is gold over magenta. So they all went down the line, and every single one was magenta, and I didn't even realize that till way down the line. So it was kind of, again, the system made itself. I really cannot take any credit for any of it. I always say I'm not the chocolate milkshake. I was just the straw. And thank goodness that what came through the straw was pretty impressive, but nothing to do with me.
Yeah, all that lovely magenta chocolate milk. That sounds lovely. So what's the significance of magenta then? What does it represent?
It's divine love. It's divine love. It is absolutely the color that relates to divine love. Look, in our chakra system, it's the soul star. It's the one above your crown, and that is a magenta light. And so it is where you connect with your higher self, with your divine self. That's always going to be a magenta thing. And if you do that consciously, I mean, I always go, we're kind of straying from the numbers, Hayden. Are you fine with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I always say to people, when you connect with that magenta star above your head, you have all the energy you need for whatever, because people start working with energy, or they become aware of an energy field. Then they go, oh, I'm so sensitive. I can't go shopping because people just drain me. And I get a grip, grow up. What you do is you connect with that magenta star above your crown, and you imagine that pouring in, and you pour it out through your heart. And you are never going to run out. Nobody's ever going to drain you. You're going to be connected, and you're going to be able to give everybody what they need. Then you go shopping, knowing that you are lighting up the place, and you are healing and supporting and making people feel better wherever you go, rather than clenching and clutching. My precious energy, don't let anybody get it. It's not your precious energy. It is divine energy that you have access to. And the more you tap into it, the more of a solid support you are on the planet, and the more you are living your purpose, So it's kind of that. And the color that the number and the color we have, again, Jesus, it's C8 is the one that relates to that color that we're talking about, because C8 is the soul star bottle. It's the end of the chakra bottles. So C8 is the one you can tap into, and when you use that, it will remind you that you are so divinely connected, and that you are absolutely on purpose doing what you came to do. So
Beautiful.
that's my little story there.
I love that. And of course, the magenta ray is Archangel Metatron, and so that whole vibration of Metatron being the connector, or the bridge between heaven and earth, isn't he?
Completely. And it kind of connects us to being the bridge. We have a rainbow chakra system. We are the rainbow bridge. We are here to bring heaven to earth, and we're doing it through our bodies, and that's our job.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Okay, so what happens then when someone works with the color mirrors system and a bottle that they choose? Is there an activation or a healing process that takes place, and what is that? How does it work?
Hayden, I think there are kind of a few things that happen there. I remember Karani, who loved what she saw, loved what we did, But it wasn't until she came and did, I think it could have been in those days. Look, this was right at the beginning. The systems were, the workshops were very different. And I think what we did was we did a bit of numerology in possibly the advanced or the teachers or something. And what she did when she saw her numbers, and she's a 33-6, and her birthday's on the 22nd. So, I mean, she really is master number, and is all about the love. And when she saw that in color, she somehow, in a way, really, really found herself. And as she says, she could finally fall in love with herself and see what it was she was doing here. And I mean, that was where she kind of just took off and took the system places that it never expected to go, into her precious light and love, and what she brought to the system. But the colors and the numbers was the thing that totally connected her to herself. And for her, she claims that as one of the greatest healing moments in her life. So it can just be that it is a sudden understanding of who you are. But it could also, then there is that. And then there also is the fact that the colors that you absorb through your eyes have a healing vibration. There also is the fact that the intention, my intention and my soul's intention and my higher self's intention and the system's intention, which is even bigger than all the me stuff, the system's intention is for healing, is to be a healing power on the planet. And that intention is always going to have an impact and bring something into the equation. So when somebody chooses bottles, for a start, there isn't one of those bottles that are not intended to remind you of your divine beauty. You choose the beautiful ones, and you choose that because they're mirroring you. So it's a reminder that you are divinely connected and beautiful, and that's why you exist. So when you can kind of take that in, there obviously is some kind of healing that's going to happen, just in terms of self-acceptance, of seeing yourself differently, of being here in a different capacity. And then there's lots of essential oils in it. We know the efficacy of the essential oils. And then there is your intention to create something that is healing, because that for me is the joy of working with it. It's not my job to heal you. You choose which ones you like. You choose the one you're going to take home. You choose whether you're going to use it or not. And I'm never going to subscribe and say, this, I know better than you. This is what's going to heal you. That's never going to happen. You are always in charge and in power. And so it is a system that is about empowering and reminding and giving you your sovereignty back. You are the chooser of every aspect of your life. And once you've seen it in this beautiful array of colors that you choose, you're going to have a different experience of how you do life on the planet. Did that remotely answer your question?
It did. And I love the way that you've used Karani as an example there, of her Starseed awakening, really, because she went on to create a lot of bottles that very much connected to different galactic families. So do you see, the color mirrors as a starseed technology?
I would say so. I would absolutely say so. I would think, why on earth did a starry boy like you come to color mirrors? It was because you suddenly felt that your tribe had arrived. You suddenly knew that you were home and you were safe. And I think that is one of the color mirrors things, is that starry people like you come to it, and suddenly there is the opportunity or the potential to do the thing you came to do, because there's a basis. You've landed in a safe space.
100%. That's exactly how it felt. It was like a familiarity about it. And it's interesting how you talk about Jilly and her number 36 being the 9, and the blue lilac gray which connects up with the future, and the platinum, which is very similar. They
Yes.
have these starry qualities as well. So, are there certain colors that are more connected to galactic energies or ascended masters, do you think?
I would think if we go into the Gaia bottles, certainly at the last lot, I mean, from the silvers on. So from I don't even know those numbers anymore. G15 to G16 onwards, I would say all of those are just admitting to being not from here. I always think the first of the Gaia bottles are the coppers, and then the golds, and then the platinums, and then the corals, and then the silvers, and then on from there. And I think when you get to the coppers are saying, look, I'm on the planet. It's not particularly comfortable. I don't love it, but I'm here. So clearly there is a plan. And then you go into the golds and you go, oh, I'm not just a body. I'm also this divine spirit. And then you go into the platinums and you go, not only am I human and earth, but I am also divine, and I am also from the stars. I have all those aspects, which is why I am here now. And then you can kind of go, okay, so now let's look at where are you from the stars? What stars are you from? If you're interested in that, it could just be that you are just so starry that it's fine to know that you are that. And you don't need to know where exactly, but there are people like you who need more and who know more, who can then explain that. So if people do find all that information, absolutely go to Hayden, because he knows where you came from.
And it's funny because that's the one thing I think that I've really taken from the system for my own personal growth was that awakening to my Andromedan lineage, and it just made so much sense when I connected to it. For obviously, we are multi-dimensional, ancient, immortal beings of light. So I know we exist on various different star systems, but I think as a human, we like to identify with one thing in particular. And for me,
Yeah.
it's just that whole notion of freedom that describes the way I've lived my life and the way I like to live my life. And knowing that, and also recognizing, through doing Mark's star chart, my husband,
Mm.
that he also, his soul comes in from the Andromeda constellation as well. It helps me understand our relationship dynamic so much better as well. So, I know you often talk about new Earth frequencies, but how does the color mirrors fully support in aligning with these?
I think that is when you go again into the Gaias. And I was going to say the interesting thing when we do the numbers, your birth numbers, is because there are now two groups of 36. It's really lovely to take what you have in the first 36, which for me has always kind of been the personality. If you take that into the next 36 and you see what then happens with your numbers, there's a really lovely thing. I mean, mine are 11 and then 26 and 8. So in the next lot, 11 is generosity, which I absolutely love. So the 11 bottle is dark and clear, and it is really about duality and still that trying to find the way through. But there's such a softening when you look at generosity, which is pale coral over pale gold. I can so take that on as my deep inner being. I am the times I was poor, the worst thing for me when I was poor was that I couldn't be generous because I had nothing to be generous with. And it really, that kind of hurt me because my nature is generous. And so, and then the 8, just in case I got above myself with how sweet and lovely I actually am, of course, is G8 and is pitch black. So, or deep, deep, deep magenta, the whole bottle. So it's just kind of, yeah, you can say all that lovely stuff about yourself, but here's who you really are. You still are deep and about serious stuff, which is true. Of course, that is true about me. And G26 is just such a softening as well because it's a clear and coral bottle. So there's a softness and an ease there that kind of then makes my journey a lot easier. And I think in a way, in the beginning, it certainly was the energies of the first 36 that I was living out. I mean, 26 is just hard. It's difficult in relationships because it's supposed it's red and green. It's a divorce bottle, it is about separation. And so my story was all about separation and abandonment. So that was what I set up for myself. But when I get to G26, I can finally let that abandonment go and step into a place where I can go, look at this. All of that was for my highest good, so that I would get to this place of love and light. And G8, the darkest bottle on the table, totally suits me, but it is called illumination, which is kind of what I've always thought my job was. I'm here to bring light into the darkness. I'm here to bring information into the darkness, to make people's journey through that dark night of the soul a bit more easy and shiny. So it kind of works on all the levels. And when you get to that, the question was about new earth energies. From I think G7 onwards, it's all about new earth living. And I think we're there, Hayden. We just have to acknowledge it and step into it. And as we started the conversation earlier, was don't look at the news. Be in your own new earth. Look at what's around you and acknowledge and feel gratitude and feel love and be in a place of seeing the light rather than looking into the darkness to see what you can bring out of there. You don't have to go there. You can be in this. You can be in this moment. And it's about being in the moment. Every spiritual teaching has gone, be in the moment, because this moment is perfect. There's nothing here that's wrong. This moment has sunshine, and I have a roof over my head. I'm talking to one of my favorite people. How does it get better than this?
100%. It's absolutely bringing, you back to the now moment, which is amazing. And you said something really interesting there, because the system, the color mirrors, is devised into, sort of two very significant sets of 36 bottles. Now, I know you mentioned that the system was channeled to you really, really quickly, or certainly the first 36 bottles were, but the number 36, what's significant about that number specifically, do you think?
Well, it's a 9, so it's completion. So 36 for me feels like the end of an aspect of it. So when we got to 36, I thought it was done. I always think it's done. And then I needed to make chakra bottles, which then was separate from. It was a different thing. And then somebody came to me and said, I keep seeing copper in people's energy fields. A really lovely psychic friend who did a lot of energy healing. And she said, I keep seeing copper. Can you make a copper bottle? And I thought, yeah, I can make it, but why would I? But anyway, I did. And I thought I made it for her. And it was kind of sitting on my bottle table, and at least 4 people walked in that went, oh my God, that's the most beautiful thing. Can I have one? So I thought, oh, this is something. And then people came and said, I need clear and copper, I need copper and copper, I need blue and copper, I need turquoise and copper, and then somehow that happened, and then there were 7 of them. And I like working with 7. It kind of seems like, the 7 days of the week, and 7 and 7 works for me and so on. So I thought, okay, now we're done. We now have 7. Mm-mm. And then we started with the golds, and it kind of carried on from there. So the system has shown where it needed to go every time. And it's interesting that the first 7 from G1 to G7 took a long time. That was kind of 1, and then another 1, and then another 1, and eventually there were 7. And I thought, okay, that's it now. And then when the golds came, they all came at the same time. And then when the platinums came, they all came at the same time, and so did the silvers, and kind of on from there. So the system kind of arrived in clumps after the first lot.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
And when it got 36, it was then such a lovely mirror image that we could then do the first 36 and the next 36 and see how those two came together.
I love that. And of course, the number 36 is 6 times 6, which is, Venus times Venus, or creation times creation. And it was a number that was used, in Egyptian architecture as well, wasn't it? In the construction of the pyramids.
Yes. Yes, and that thing with the 3, 6, and 9 is also just if you have 36, you have 3, 6, and 9.
That's right, which is the construction of the matrix fundamentally, and it's kind of embedded within everything. And we know that Nikola Tesla said,
Mm.
that if we knew the secrets of the 369, we'd understand, how the universe is made, or something similar
Yeah.
to that. As that famous quote. So it's interesting that
Yeah.
that wisdom is incorporated within the system as well. And I loved what you just said about the number seven as well. That you always feel like, the seven being that mystical influence, it gives you that information as either when to stop a system of bottles. And Ian White talks about this as well. Like he's the Australian bush flower essence
Mhm.
founder in Australia, and I'm going to be interviewing him actually in a couple of weeks' time. And he uses the number seven in how he makes up the remedies, and how many drops of any particular flower essence that you put under your tongue. So whether it's Crowea or Sturt Desert Pea or the Sturt Desert Rose or whatever it is, you put seven
Yeah.
drops. So that mystical aspect of the seven, it carries the magic as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's kind of there's a bit of a miracle to seven. It keeps coming up. Our bottle 7 Neptune is, it says expect miracles. It really is, there's something great coming. So it has that kind of energy of a bit of magic and miracles and good things um coming out of the flow.
Beautiful. Yeah, 100%. So, as you know, the future of the color mirrors is always looking rosy. But as the planets are shifting and we as a collective are evolving into a higher consciousness, how do you see the color mirrors evolving?
Wow. You know what? I That's not a prediction I can make, Hayden, at all, because we keep having things happen and new people come to color mirrors, and then they go, oh my god, this poor old woman doesn't know what she's doing, but I know how she can change it, and then it'll all be a lot different and work much better. And they come and they go and nothing changes until the system changes, and then a thing happens that none of us had any inkling of, and then it does its thing. So I'm not even trying to go, it's going to go here or it's going to go there. I know that it has its own kind of inner. Um, it's a thing, It's the system is a thing, and it will evolve in whichever way it chooses to, and that almost has nothing to do with me or or is even any of my business. I just kind of sit back and see what needs to happen next, and then it goes there without me being too. I don't block it, but I also don't push it. And I've really had to learn that one the hard way. There were times when I was like, oh, this is what I need to do. And then it would go, no, no, you really don't. And it just would fall flat. So I don't push anymore. I just go, okay, let's see where you want to go. And then we
Yeah.
go along with that.
I love that. Yeah. So it's just about going with the flow, isn't it? And then I suppose as we move into 2026, next year that 26 energy's around again. So, in the color mirrors, that 26 energy is the partnerships bottle, isn't it? And so how do you feel like that will influence the collective, like next year particularly? Is it going to bring up where we need to have separations or move away from
Oh, I
codependencies?
don't know. I'm a little bit anxious to think about that. Let's rather look at 25 and see how perfect it is for this year, because 25 says trust, trust, trust the process. That's all you can do this year. Look at all the madness and then just trust that we are in flow. It's all happening. It's all exactly as it was meant to be. So 26 is going to be an interesting year because, in a way, it's olive green underneath, which is hope for the future, and it's magenta on top, which is divine love. So I think next year is going to feel possibly quite difficult, but if we hold on to what the deep inner message of those colors are, we're going to see that it is about hoping uh, that there is real new growth coming in that olive green, and that the magenta is overlighting it, saying divine love has got what this is needing to be. So it'll be a year of, I suspect, quite a lot of shifting and changing and things happening that is going to look not great. But don't go into fear. Absolutely go into the meaning of those colors and know that it's hopeful and it is divinely ordered and steered and on purpose and happening exactly as we set it up for our highest good, and our soul's purpose. So it'll be an interesting year. But hang on to your hat and hang on to your faith.
I love that. And thank you for, such a hopeful close of today's podcast. It's just been an incredible conversation. I've loved every second of it, Melissie. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and the magic of the colour mirrors with us today. So, if you're watching and you're also intrigued by this amazing system and you want to experience more of its transformational power, you can explore more of Melissie's work by checking out her books, What the Seeker Found, which I believe is on Amazon, and The Wisdom of the Colour Mirrors, which is, like a go-to book of, sheer genius. It's absolutely, it's thick and it's just full of beautiful colour therapy wisdom, which will describe more about the numerology and the colour of the bottles that Melissie has been speaking about today. And you can also connect with me at Dreemtime Academy as well if you're interested in learning more about, learning to become a practitioner, etc., or having a session. But before we go, please don't forget to subscribe to the Numerology Show and hit the bell as well so that you never miss an episode. Let us know your comments as well on what colour and number is calling you today as well. I'd be really interested to find out, or maybe pop in the comments what your life path number or your ruling number is and how you feel you are connected to it or not, as whatever the case may be. So until next time, keep shining, keep exploring, and remember that your numbers and colors hold the key to your soul's journey. Thanks again, and thank you, Melissie.